Today I'm testing yet another manual focus lens like I've been doing lately quite a lot. This one is KamLan 50mm f1.1 version 1. Let's see what I can do with this lens. Hi there, my name is Peter and I am a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. And before we start actually testing the 50mm KamLan lens, the f1.1 version 1, a disclaimer. This lens is my own. I bought it with my own money, and this lens is not sponsored by KamLan by any ways or any means, and all the opinions that I say are of course my own, like always. But let's start photographing with this and see what we can do. Let's start with the specification of this lens. Let's first talk about the look and feel of this lens. This lens is well made. Like most of the lenses I've ever tested, they're all well made. Of course, there are some plastic versions of some really cheap lenses, but that's of course a different thing. This is a very inexpensive lens, only 169 euros in their KamLan's online store. And what's good about it is that they have warehouses in US, in Asia and in Europe. So if you want to buy this in Europe, you don't have to pay the extra taxes that will be added to the price if it comes out of EU. And I guess it's in some regards the same thing in other countries too. So 169. So what do you get with that? You get a well-built lens that is actually quite heavy if we compare this to the M.Zuiko 45mm f1.8 lens. It's about double the price, the weight. And also it's half of the weight of the Pro version of the 45mm M.Zuiko lens. And the focusing ring is quite long, but it is very nice. It moves really smoothly, and you have got really good markings on the distance scale. And then of course it's a manual lens. You have a aperture ring, which is a non-click aperture ring. And there's one fun thing: it doesn't have f11 at all marked. Of course it has f11, but it doesn't have it marked on the lens. That's probably because it doesn't fit in there. And I've said before that non-click aperture ring is not my favorite, but actually when I start thinking about it a bit more, you have a more precise way of making the exposure when you have non-clickable, because you can use the values between. So it's actually not that bad if you get used to it. But I still prefer the clicks when I'm doing photography. But let's continue to make some images, and I think there is something interesting we can see to the Helsinki from there. Well, it is snowing a bit, and we can't really see the new high-rise buildings that they're building back there. So I don't know if I can get an image of it. It will look a bit different, but let's try what we can do about that. Yeah, I can't really see anything with through the viewfinder. I can't see the buildings behind there because there's thick clouds and quite a lot of snow coming. It's not a snowstorm, but there's still enough snow to block the view with the camera. So what I need to do is to use dehaze in post-production to make the buildings visible behind. But then of course too much dehaze will kind of ruin the image, because I want it to be a bit hazy. And yeah, about this place where I'm at, I did the 150 to 400mm lens, hands-on lens on this area. And this is a nature reserve, and the board over there says that this is, of course it says that it's a nature reserve, but you cannot walk here during the summer. Only when it's freezing cold and the ice is, or the water is not open, because there are lots and lots of birds. And since it's a nature reserve, you cannot really walk here during the summer. But now that it's winter, it's okay to walk here. No birds nesting right now here. They are flying some birds around, and I saw some bird photographers walking around here because there might be some birds. But that's not my thing today because I only have this lens with me. But let's continue. And as you saw from the specs, and as I said many times, this one is a 50mm lens, which means that the equivalent field of view is 100mm if you compare it to the full frame. And this lens is actually available for full frame APS-C and micro four thirds. So when you go to their KamLan's website and look what this lens is for, then it's not the same lens for, same lens for full frame and micro four thirds, because it's a standard lens in full frame, and in micro four thirds it is actually a small telephoto lens. So who is this lens for then, if you are using it in your micro four thirds body? Well, I wouldn't say that it's an all-around lens. I would say more that it's a portrait lens and a good travel lens if you are familiar with longer lens, because 100mm is not very suitable for street photography if we're talking about in the classical street photography. But of course it doesn't mean that you cannot use it for that. But for portraits this is a really good lens. Since it's really fast, you do have the option to have a nice bokeh. And talking about the bokeh, this is something that you might want to get it for. But I don't really fancy the bokeh of this lens. It's a bit odd looking. And as I said that this is the version 1.1 or the version 1, there is a new version of this lens, and I've heard similar complaints about the bokeh, that it's not one that lots of people like. But it doesn't mean that you don't like it, and nothing wrong with that. But for me it is a bit odd looking. But let's continue to make some more images with this, and enough with the talk. Actually there is a lonely tree there which could make an interesting image. Let's see what we can do about that. Yeah, and I stopped down to f2.8. Let's see, maybe a vertical image. Yeah, I think it came out nice. Let's have a look. Yeah, there's a lot of empty space or negative space around it, and I left quite a lot in top of the tree to make it more interesting. I don't know, the foreground isn't that interesting. It's a fun place to walk around with the winter wonderland, even though it's not that cold today, which is really good. Yeah, this is the place where the bird watchers come. There's a sign here that says what kind of birds there are. And if you're interested in some tips about photographing in snow and ice in a cold weather like this, even though it's not, as I said, really cold right now, the wind is building up, so it might get a bit colder later today, but right now it's not too cold. But there's a video about photographing in snow and ice. It just published it a week ago, or less than a week ago, so it's fresh. So go and check out the info about that. For now I'm gonna take a landscape photograph from the things that I see and you on the video behind here. Let's see what I can do and how that comes out. I think a vertical version of this could be better. But as you can see, not very colorful weather like it is during the winter like this, when you have really dull sky and nothing colorful in the scenery. But I think there might be that direction, there might be something interesting, because there is some snow on the trees, and then you have the reeds, or whatever that is called. I don't know if that reeds, whatever the stuff is in the front here. And let me try if I can do that. Yeah, what I need to do is to add some contrast to the image, because the separation from the sky and the trees is not very clear on this image, so I need to fix it in post. And as I said in the beginning, I've tested quite a few manual focus lenses, and I kind of like them, even though they're sometimes a bit harder to use. But of course, remember that you can assign focus peaking or magnify to a function button. I've added to the FN button on the EM1 Mark II. So it's easier. When I press it, I can see the peaking, and it's easier to focus to the right place, exactly where you want it. And that's a good thing, because especially for me, using the LCD for focusing is a lot harder. But with the EVF, it's not a problem. And I was thinking about this earlier also, that it's funny how we want our gear to be top-notch, the latest technology, but we want the gear to look old. That is something because I like it too. I really do like vintage gear. I don't know why, but it is something strange, because there are some really futuristic cameras in the market, or has been, and any of them has not been successful. And you know, people want to buy a retro looking gear. I don't know why. There's a bird been walking on this, and I'm testing the closest focusing distance, which is a 50 centimeters. So it's not really a great close-up lens, but with, let's say that you can use extenders, it might work. But now I will take some more images and I will show them to you. So enjoy the images. I hope you enjoy the images. As you can see, you can get really okay images with this, but there are a few problems. The F1.1 is not really that usable, because, as I said, the bokeh isn't the nicest looking, into my eye at least. And then of course the sharpness is not very good at F1.1. Stopping down a bit takes care of that problem. But then there's the chromatic aberration, which is really bad, and getting rid of that it's not that easy. Actually, it's really bad, and there's not much to say about the image quality. I enjoy using it. It's a pleasure to use, but if the image quality isn't that great, so actually I would not recommend for you to get this, even though this is really an inexpensive lens. And of course, if you're on a tight budget, it's better than having no lens, of course. But I would suggest that saving up to get a bit better lens, because the 45mm lens from M.Zuiko is not that bad priced. You can get it with almost with the same price. It's a bit expensive usually, but there are some good deals on that too. So that lens is a lot better. And it's also smaller and lighter. So there are a lot of benefits. But if you do not care about the... now there's somebody coming. I need to stop for a little while so that I can fit. Menkää vaan siitä ohi. Saa ohittaa toki. All right, let's continue. Where was I? Yeah, the look and feel is okay with this lens, and I don't really mind that, but to be honest, I think it was a waste of money to get this. This is the first time I bought a lens that is actually no good, but I might still use it for some occasions, and because of the strange looking bokeh, that might be suitable for some occasions. But I guess I'm take a few more images over there, and then I will head back home and start editing this video. But hey, thanks for watching, and bye for now.